Hey everybody, this is Eli from Elfbait. Welcome back. And today I'm going to go ahead and dive in and do something I've never done before on this channel before, and that is a product review. Well, sort of. I did do a video on a game system a couple days ago, an older game that I've played in the past. It was the Tales from the Wood video. But not so much a product review as much as just what games I play kind of a video. This is more focusing on a current release from Nerdarchy, the guys over at Nerdarchy, the team over at Nerdarchy, Dave, Ted, Nate, and Doug, and a few others. I mean, those guys are just this giant, organism of content creation. So pretty sure they are someday going to have an island somewhere. But anyways, the product I wanted to talk about is a PDF that they released. Now, this is one of many. I mean, if you are familiar with them, then you know that they have a lot of stuff out there. If you're not familiar with Nerdarchy, not only are they video content creators, not only do they do streaming for games and live chats, but they do produce gaming content, adventures, play aids like miniatures and dungeon scenery, spell templates and stuff like that. So it's pretty cool. They've been putting stuff out for a while. One of their most recent releases is an 11-page PDF called Fantastical Mounts, and it's framed in the context of their Chimes of Discordia campaign setting that they play in. It's their own homebrew, but really it's useful if you have any kind of fantasy setting, period. Now, some of the stuff in here definitely screams more high fantasy, but I think anything in the game, you can frame it back and put it in the context of any kind of a setting, there's nothing too overly fantastic, even though it's called Fantastic Beasts. There's nothing that's going to break a low magic setting, for example. Some of the stuff may be weird, but even settings like Conan have their ultra weirdness. Lovecraft has all sorts of weirdness, even though it's not necessarily what I would call a high fantasy setting. So, what is Fantastical Mounts? Well, as its name would indicate, it is about new kinds of mount animals that can be used for riding and conveyance. And I say conveyance because some of them are big enough to where they're not simply a mount. But it is, things that are beyond a horse, beyond a donkey, beyond even, a riding dog or something like that. These are truly fantastical mounts. Now, in these 11 pages, you get kind of two main sections. Page 1 to 4 focuses on the training of these creatures, and what they do there is really kind of cool. There's a list, basically a description, a bunch of text on sort of the temperament and the behavior of the creature and what it takes to train them. We then get a nice block of lore slash training rolls, DCs for training for things that the creatures can do. This is the one thing that I really like. So generally it goes into the process. So the text will go into the process of the training, and then we get each one has an animal handling skill check block. And the cool thing is that the skill check block is not just the mundane stuff. That's already covered under animal handling. Most of this stuff is specialized things that are specific to the particular creature. And it gives a DC for untrained and trained. So, in essence, what they're saying here is that these creatures can be encountered. You can take the time to train them, but also if you just so happen to encounter one and, like parties are going to do this often. I don't know how many times I've had folks go like, I'm going to try and jump on the back of the bear, or I'm going to see if I can find this or whatever, and I'm trying to just kind of break it, but not really train it, just get it under control. There are difficulty classes in here to allow you to do that. And I think that's really cool inclusion. I mean, it's easy enough to just go ahead and say, these are the things it can do when it's trained, but also to add in an extra element of untrained difficulty classes is just extra meat. Another thing that they've included, and this is detailed further back in the text, but there's a nice front page 1 chart of the costs for the beasts, but also for trade goods associated with them. One of the other really cool points that the Nerdarchy folks did is put this together in the context of not only is you have an animal that you can train to ride, but also there's some commerce involved here. Some of them produce elements, material elements that can be used for spell components or for textiles, or have some other sort of pseudo-industrial applications, and they give the prices in there. So these monsters are not only useful as mounts, not only are they useful in counters, but they're also useful in providing non-magical treasure and potentially long-term commerce elements for your party. If your party were to invest in a herd of kangarams, then there are things you can do with the kangarams. So let me kind of jump in to what creatures are included in this. And I won't go into too much detail because I don't want to give so much away from the product that it invalidates the product. So what we have is the Abysdir. Now, the Abysdir is kind of an Underdark monster that is really, I mean, in terms of D&D, it would probably be, let's see, what do they type it as? It is a monstrosity, but it's so weird, it almost comes across as an aberration. It's just this massive hybrid of like 3 or 4 different species. Very much a chimerical creature, and really a cool concoction. I think this is it's kind of the baby of Ted over at Nerdarchy, as far as like his favorite project in here. The writing in this was done by Ted and Nate over there at Nerdarchy. Editing and layout was done by Doug. I think that's their nerditor in chief. And then there was art by Neftali and Ramos. So it's a short list of credits, but I know that those guys don't do anything in a vacuum. So I'm sure Dave is in the mix there. I know that one of the monsters in here was sort of his brainchild. I think that is the Kangaram. Maybe wrong. So Dave, you can shoot me a text or complain at me in the comments if I'm wrong. So yes, the first part of the book is training and the use of these creatures, what they can do with them. And we get the price list for the creatures themselves, as well as any trade goods that come from them. Now, pages 4 through 11, this is where the book gives you the stat blocks and the explanation for the trade goods. And this is another part of the added value of this particular product. In the case of most of these monsters, we're not getting just a single stat block. We are getting multiple iterations of the creature. So the Abysdir, for example, we get the young Abysdir and the adult Abysdir, and their statistics are, they're a challenge rating 1 and 2 monster. And then we get some description about what the creature looks like, how it behaves, just like you would with any other monster entry from like, say, a Monster Manual or Tome of Beasts or anything like that. They're in their own format. They do not follow the exact format of Monster Manual or Tome of Beasts. They're certainly they've gone as far as to establish their own trade style, their own, I can't remember, trade dress, or I think is what they call that. So we then, in addition to the Abysdir, we get the Dranther. Now, the Dranther is sort of a dragon panther. Imagine, that's exactly what it is. It's a dragon panther. So the Dranthers, we get elite Dranthers, and we have regular Dranthers. There are also elder Dranthers that are mentioned. So we get 3 stat blocks for the Dranthers. Gantuans are these giant kind of pachydermian creatures. We get a regular Gantuan, and then we get war Gantuans. Again, these are differences of they're usually separated by like a challenge rating or 2 if you go across the whole span. After the gantuans, we get the kangarams. Kangarams have a single stat block, but kangarams are... It's a kangaroo ram hybrid. Come on, it's fun. Not all of these are hybrids, just to let you know. I mean, you know, while I said the Abysdir is a hybrid, it's so chimerical that it's its own thing. The dranthers, while the name is certainly evocative of their parent species, or at least the concepts that are mashed together, when you read the description, they certainly come together as a creature of their own. So we're not just simply doing monster mashes, even though I know Nate loves monster mashes. I've talked a lot of monster design with Ted in the past, and so I also know that he likes to modify stat blocks and do monster mashes. I do that myself too. It's an easy way to make monsters, but I think that's where you begin, and where they become really interesting monsters is when you take that initial mashup and then you put on the extra trappings, you flesh it out, and you turn it into something. Kangarams, even though they're called kangarams, they are not just a kangaroo ram hybrid. Gantuans are more than just giant elephants. The last creature we get in here, probably the second to the most exotic of the crowd. You know, Abysdirs are certainly the weird oddity in the group. Water striders are pretty fantastical. Not as weird, but definitely kind of the second contender for the kind of the really high concept. These are giant water bugs that can be ridden by small creatures. They're not huge. When I say giant water bug, I mean we're talking about giant in comparison. They're a medium monster, but they have this really cool capacity to stay on top of water, even though they're so big that science says that they shouldn't have. And I'm not going to spoil it for you, but you know, the guys, when they wrote these up, when they wrote up these monsters, they came up with a great piece of what they like to call in science fiction pseudoscientific bullshit, the PSB, to explain how these things are able to stay astride. And then, because this book it's this pamphlet, this PDF, it's 11 pages, so if you bind it right, it could be a book. Anything could be a book, right? But what they've done, even with the water strider, is while they have this cool PSB to explain how they're able to stay above, again, there's added value to the monster, because they then go into how that could be used as far as how that method expands into like a commerce element. So that is what the product is. It's really clean and easy to read. You know, prints. It's not so graphic intensive that it's going to kill your printer. That's another nice advantage. I mean, it is a very accessible PDF that still, while it still manages to look good, it's not going to kill your printer cartridge. So that's a plus for me. I print out a lot of PDFs, and I always love when a company either bothers to keep in mind my printer when they're making it, by either making the master product, the main product, easy on the printer cartridge, or providing a print-friendly copy, print-friendly option. So that's a plus as well. That's not a gaming positive, but it's certainly a physical material element of this that's definitely a bonus. So that's what the supplement is. How do you use it? Well, it kind of tipped a bit, to that while I was explaining what the product is. Don't be fooled. It's listed as Chimes of Discordia, but like any gaming product that's out there, you can pick and pull and use what you want for your game. I've got Tomb of Annihilation, but I'm not going to necessarily play that adventure stock and as it was intended. I'm throwing it in as part of a greater campaign, and there's lots of elements from Tomb of Annihilation, for example, that I could pull over into another aspect of a game. Then that's true with this too. So you've got mounts. Anytime you have fantastical mounts, to my mind, it starts the wheels turning on creating societies that use these. And some of this is pretty obvious, like the Abysdirs. I can definitely see them. I can see Drow on these things, Dorgar, but you could make up your own race that uses them. They're kind of bat spidery things, so maybe they're the mounts of a vampire lord or a kingdom of vampires or something. These, I mean, it mount. That's one thing, you know, cool mounts always do for me when I'm reading a product, is they just really get me thinking about who it is that rides these and how they fit into society. When you have dranthers, I mean, you're talking about dragonborn riding dranthers would be cool. On the other hand, you know, maybe you've got a knightly order of humans that's out there riding around on them. I don't know much about the Chimes of Discordia setting, so I can't say how they use them, but it doesn't really matter, because I mean, most of us who are going to be buying this are not going to be playing in the Chimes of Discordia setting, at least not yet, until those guys actually get around to, you know, we're at Nerdarchy, get around to publishing their setting, and then who knows, maybe people will start playing there too. I don't know if that's a plan of theirs, but we can hope, because I hear a lot of talk about it, and they have a great world that they built up. Yeah, so mounts are going to inspire cultures, or at least orders. Kangarams. Kangarams sound like a great mount for tribal folk. They would be an interesting alternative, say, to like orcs or hobgoblins or something to that effect. I mean, some sort of humanoid race, dwarves on kangarams. Anything with rams always just sings with dwarves. Although kangaroo motivation, kangaroo mobility tends to lend to open terrain. They could be the mount of some massive horse. You know, all of these settings that we play in, they always love to throw in horse lords. What if instead of horse lords, we had kangaram lords? Gantuans. Who doesn't like monstrous war beasts? When you have, I mean, we all love Oliphants and we all love war mammoths and stuff. But now here's an opportunity to throw something different into the mix. When your hobgoblin horde shows up to trounce the capital city in your campaign, if they're riding Gantuans, that's going to make people take pause. I mean, what, the big old six-legged, tree stump-legged, multi-tusked, you know, whatever. I mean, they're just really cool monsters. Water Striders. So the Water Striders, I mean, there's a really fun one. I mean, it immediately conjures up images of like swamp folk, halflings or gnomes. What if you had like black dragon kobolds that rode around on these water striders in their swamp to help them get around? So now you've got kobolds that are actually out there, and you know, maybe they got this black dragon in the center of the swamp that they serve, that they're zipping around on. Maybe there's a water strider that is the personal mount of the Fae in an area, or maybe there's Fae that ride these water striders. If you're doing something like Tomb of Annihilation, or you've got your own swampy jungle setting, why don't you put like grung or bullywugs? Well, I think bullywugs are too big, but like grung, I believe, are small creatures. You can put those on there, and it would look really cool. You got these little frog dudes zipping around on these water striders. I mean, there's just, the supplement is full of so many just evocative monsters, and it's, you know, it's a simple thing, but there's a lot packed in here. I don't want to oversell it, but I believe, you know, there's certainly credit to be given to the quality of the writing and the quality of the imagination that went into this. So I'm going to kind of leave it there. There's, you know, pick it up, you know, for a few clams over on Nerdarchy. You can go ahead and get yourself, you know, a handful of amazing monsters to encounter, some interesting mounts for your players to try and, you know, either buy or tame. Some really just neat imagination fuel. I think, you know, hats off to the guys, you know, the over at Nerdarchy for putting together a really quality, simple product. It makes me want to go and check out more of the stuff that they've got over in the store. I haven't picked up any of their adventures because I just really don't really run a lot of published adventures. I like to mine them for material, but this makes me really want to see what else it is that they come up with. You know, I hear a lot of their chats about their ideas, and I hear a lot of discussion about, you know, the monsters that they would make, the kind of things they have in their campaign. And I think that stuff just really just bleeds out into this. So go on over to the Nerdarchy store, nerdarchy.com. Check out their you know, Fantastical Mounts supplement. Give it a read. Surprise your players. You're not going to be sorry. Amazing little PDF, guys. I appreciate, you know, the work you put into this, and even bothering to go ahead and do that update, that revision, when you saw that there was a little bit of a tweak that was needed. That kind of attention to detail and to quality really speaks to what you're doing. So I'm going to end the review here. I'm not going to give it any, like, you know, 5 dragons or anything. I don't like to rate based on numbers or anything like that. It's a good product. It's a useful product. I plan to use it. I've already come up with a few ideas for ways to use some of the creatures in here, and, you know, it's good stuff. So anyways, this is Eli from Elfbait. Go ahead and throw your comments down below. If you have questions about it, that you're just kind of wondering, maybe I didn't cover something in the review, or maybe you know, you have an idea or another. So, you know, how would you use some stuff, even from just what I told you here? How would you use some of these creatures? What do you think about magical mystical mounts? I know there's some folks who don't like throwing out super fantastical stuff for players to ride, and I know some people who are just hungry and starving for that. The place for that is down below. Like, share, subscribe. Certainly helps expand the channel and lets me know that folks are watching. Check out the Facebook group for Elfbait over on Facebook. And I've also got, I'm also Elfbait on Twitter, and we have our new Elfbait email, which is baittheelf@gmail.com. All right, guys, that's it for this review. I hope you enjoyed it, hope it was useful, and as always, get out and game.